All right. We should be live right now. Let's check it.
Yeah, it says we are.
All right. From the sources, we are currently live. So awesome. Cool. We're good to go. All right, cool. Awesome. So I guess we can just we'll chop it up before it actually does start. 'Cause it starts 2:30. But how's everyone's day going? How's everyone been doing?
Going well.
Good. You guys don't sound excited at all. You guys are like, oh, whatever. It's fine. It's Friday. We just want it to be the weekend.
It's Friday. I'm fired up. It was my birthday on Wednesday, so I'm having a big party tonight.
Nice.
So things are going.
Happy belated.
This is your birthday party. Don't lie. Yeah, this is it. Morgan's actually planning on singing at the beginning of this. This is all a big surprise, right? It's like balloons gonna drop and everything.
I don't know if you want me singing or rapping or anything musical. I lost all that talent after the 5th grade. I used to play guitar and I used to sing.
Really?
Could have had a different life, guys. Yeah. I used to be. It was actually pretty interesting looking back on it. So I played the guitar and I could play the flute. And my parents were like, "Yeah,
flute."
The flute. So I don't know.
Jazz flute or
I don't
regular
know.
flute?
I had the
Yeah, it's not jazz flute. It's not real.
then,
Doesn't count.
and then from there,
That's cool, man.
I started doing acting, and then I was an acting
Me
player
too.
in middle school. Yeah.
I used to act as well. I was in like a million Hot Wheels commercials when I was a kid.
So it's very, very interesting. Cool. Is anyone who's in live right now, say what's up in the chat. We'll say what's up to you. We are still making sure everything is good to go. We're going to start promptly at 2:30, but thanks for people who are already involved and already here. We'll start in the next 6 minutes. Everyone's sound is pretty good. I heard some people said that AirPods are echoey. Uh-oh. The AirPods. Told you, AirPod Yeti. It's a thing. We got to hit up Apple. AirPod Yeti.
I don't know what to tell people.
AirPod Yeti.
Like we're echoey. Test.
Yeah, some people said that you might have been echoey. For people that are telling me that you might be echoey, I don't really hear too much echo, but it could be. I don't know.
What about from me?
You sound good now. Unless maybe when you did long drawn on sentences, you sound good now. I don't know.
I can go off the just my laptop if that works better.
Try it.
Let's do it, man. Don't give in. Well, I'll keep them in just for show.
Audio quality on the laptop, but keep them in for show.
Let's see. Hold on.
Test. Does that sound any better?
Yeah, that actually sounds a lot better.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it actually really does.
All right.
You could have kept them in though for show. You can keep them in.
I can't now. It's become the whole thing.
Oh, I feel like I've ruined Zach's dreams.
I'm staying strong. I'm keeping mine in.
Oh gosh. Cool. So across the board, I guess frame of reference for everybody that's hopping in. We'll kind of say where we're from for people who are still watching. So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm currently in New York, but I am from ATL, born and raised. Where is everyone else from?
Bay Area.
You're going to need to call people out, man. We're going to all start speaking at once.
I was testing you guys. I want to see who talked first. We'll see who is the most aggressive to talk already. Cool. Well, Catherine, you start.
From the Bay Area, Palo Alto, if you know it.
Sam?
Denver, Colorado.
Cool. Zach?
From Salt Lake City, but I am actually in Atlanta right now. As you can see on the wall behind me, I'm at Sales Loft's office.
It's a good spot. Their office is awesome. 22nd. Have you gone to 22nd floor yet?
Yep, we were just there.
Yeah, that's like the best.
Throwing bouncy balls off the balcony.
it's such a dope spot. Cool. Scott, where are you at?
Vancouver, Canada. Keeping it cold.
Yeah, I heard it's like super awesome over there.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I've heard like really good things that it's just like a dope spot to be at.
Yeah. Vancouver's awesome. It's a similar vibe to like San Fran-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's cool. You should check it out.
Yeah. Is it above or below Alaska?
Below.
Below. There's nothing above.
I wasn't good at geography.
Alaska is so far away.
Right near Seattle, man.
Vancouver's like right on the other side of Seattle.
We're a couple hours drive from Seattle. Like I can be in Seattle in like 2 hours.
Okay. Man, you guys, I thought it was above Alaska for sure.
That is wild.
Somebody deceived me.
Not that cold.
Yeah, Vancouver's above Alaska. Yeah.
Morgan's strengths are flute and spelling, not geography.
No, I did terrible in that class. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, name the 50 states." Fail. I didn't know the 50 states. All I knew was Atlanta, and maybe I guess
West Carolina.
I know that's all I really knew. Sydney, where are you at?
So I'm from Colorado, but I live in San Francisco now.
There you go, Colorado mates.
Let's go.
You guys are from like
There's snow in Colorado. It's
some
really
very
bad here.
cold places. Denver, Salt Lake. Those are cold places. Vancouver.
Vancouver's not that cold. Common misconception. It's not cold here.
But it's near Alaska.
Rainy.
So it has to be cold, right?
Yeah. We get a lot of rain. That's what we're known for. Rain a lot.
I mean, it has
I'm gonna fight off polar bears a lot. You know, they're always coming in my house.
Exactly. You're next to Alaska, so it has to be freezing over there. I couldn't handle that. Honestly, if I was born in a cold place, like I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd freeze, and I get nothing done because I'd be cold all the time. Cool, awesome. Well, we got a minute here. Oh, sound quality is good. Zach's rebelling against everybody and making the AirPods still stand. So we're gonna go right into it, right at 2:30. So welcome everyone to the SDR roundtable. This is an idea that we talked about this for 4 to 5 months. It's been a while. We've been trying to go back and forth, make sure how are we gonna make this happen. So if you guys didn't read the LinkedIn post, if you haven't seen the things I've been posting or talking about this, it really derives from King Arthur and the Roundtable. So if you're not familiar with the story, King Arthur had a roundtable. He had conversations with the people around him that he trusted, and to get mind share and just to continuously have tactics to be successful. And so we're doing the same thing here from a sales development perspective. Everyone I have here has been an SDR, has done some SDR work, leading an SDR team, or currently still works with SDR. So everyone here has the information and the value for all of you that are watching here today to make sure that you can be successful in your roles and you can do the things that you need to do successfully. So the topic that we're going to go in today is the current mindset of an SDR. So there's a multitude of questions that we're going to touch on today to make sure that you guys get takeaways and tactics you can use right here, like after this is over, to make cold calls and keep dialing. But I want to go into what I believe the first thing we have to talk about is what is the current mindset of an SDR and what is currently wrong in sales development. And so the things I really want to dive into first is, hey, I think the biggest thing that's wrong in sales development is people are not making calls anymore. So I think a lot of people on this panel today, this roundtable today, are going to touch on that. But I think that's the one biggest thing. And I think you got to change up different time zones, right? You got to call in the morning, you got to call after work, maybe you got to call during their lunch. I think the problem is that people make calls for an hour, they don't get any answers, and then they're done. They're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think what we really have to focus in on is what can we be doing on a daily basis? What can we be doing across the board to be successful in making phone calls? Is it your intros off? Is it your talk track? Is it aligned? What are you currently doing that is not helping you get there? So I think that's a current problem. I think number two, and I posted about this, I've seen multitude of you comment about this, and I've been doing my own trial with this as well. And it's actually starting to bother me, is personalized invitations on LinkedIn. I honestly don't understand why people don't do it every single time. Like 99% of the time I do it. Like one time I don't do it is if I met someone, we had a really good conversation, I'll just send an invite because I'm on the move at an event. That's the only time I don't do a personalized invitation. But guys, you don't understand how many invitations people have. I have over 1,000. I don't know how much you guys have. I have over 1,000 and they're all not personalized. I talked to someone the other night. He has 5,000 that aren't personalized. So imagine all the buyers you're trying to get in front of, and you're just sending a generic invitation to be like, oh yeah, connect with my network. They're not going to connect with you because they have thousands of other people that they have inside their invitation pool that they just see as another person. So you have to stand out with a persona-based invitation to get yourself there. And I also think the last number 3, and I'm going to invite other people to answer some of the questions so we get more people involved, is I think a lot of people aren't being as innovative as they can be. So I think current mindset of an SDR is to continuously be innovative every single day. And so I was talking to a team the other day and they asked me, like, what do you feel like is the number one reason for success? Like, what is that? And I said, I'm just willing to do things most people aren't willing to do. Make videos, make content, things of that nature, try new tactics that are like obscene, screenshot your tweet to get your attention. I'll do crazy stuff that makes 0 sense, but I'm going to do it to see, hey, look, does this even work? Because if I'm doing what everyone else is doing, think about 500 other SDRs reaching out to the same people. What am I going to do to stand out? And I was talking to someone earlier today while I was here in New York, shout out to Malcolm, I was like, hey, look, you got to think about what can you do to stand out above everyone else, right? What are you going to do? Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to generate pipeline. And you're not going to be able to set those meetings that you want. And you're going to put yourself in a bad spot. And so that's the current mindset of the SDR. That's what we're going to talk about today. I think those are 3 things that I see really wrong in sales development. And those just nuggets in there to take away, like, especially on the personalized invitation. I guarantee you guys, if you start doing personalized invitations, the game changes. I make cold calls still today, and I will invite someone and I'll get them on the phone and they'll be like, oh yeah, thanks for the invitation. Like, that was cool. And then we'll go into the conversation. So it's already warm. They already know who I am. And I didn't even tell them, hey, I sent you an invitation. So it's just an added touch, guys, to be beneficial. But we're going to hop into someone else. So I'm going to toss it over to Sam. And this is a question that kind of evolves on top of what I was talking about. But what is a current problem in sales development that is evolving that no one is talking about?
So I thought about this one a lot. And what really came to mind for me is that SDRs and, sales in general, the tech has kind of enabled us to take these shortcuts. But I think these shortcuts and tricks are actually kind of like going to hurt the overall effectiveness of the SDR role long term. So, when you look at some examples of that, local dial, it's a phenomenal feature that you can get to try and get someone to pick up the call. But now, telemarketing companies are using that, collection agencies are using that. People are picking up their phones less and less, even from local numbers. And so it's becoming more complex trying to get people to answer the phone. Same with, automating email, sending out emails to people that you can put dynamic tags in and get responses and get people to open with the subject line. But then they open it and they see that the content within the email doesn't really add up to the value proposed in the subject line. So SDRs are taking these shortcuts, trying to help them in their efficiency, but then it ends up, long term, I think it's going to have kind of a negative impact on sales development because people are going to become more weary of, tricks and, these tools that SDRs are using.
Yeah. And so how do we combat that, right? Like, how do we overcome that hump?
Yeah. I mean, really the number one thing is you got to demonstrate value. Like whether you're calling on the phone and if somebody picks up, like you better be ready to jump in with some value to give them. If you're, sending out emails, make sure that the value lines up with the subject line. You're not just tricking someone to open it up. You shouldn't be taking short-term or shortcuts to get some short-term success when really you should be, pushing yourself and striving to add the value, not stooping to a lower level and bringing in, the value throughout the whole process and not making your leads and your prospects feel like you're tricking them just to get a conversation started.
Yeah, you definitely can't trick your prospects because when you do that, they're not going to trust you in the long term. And then if they take a meeting with you, they may be like, okay, this is cool, but they're actually not going to be as involved as they can be. And I feel like that's definitely a huge issue that Sam is touching on is we have to be able to provide value in the right context. And that's crafting up the right persona messagings for those people. So when they do answer the phone, they do answer your email, they're like, this is for me and it's not for everyone else. And we have to be inclusive with our process and make sure that that's valuable. So, and that goes into the next thing to make sure is that valuable and to make sure the reps are doing the right thing is leadership. So this is where I toss it over to Zach. He's leading teams already. He's in the trenches with them. What is the number one problem with leadership when it comes to sales development?
I think the biggest problem is coaching based on generalities. somebody will read a blog and change all of their coaching, even though that, that person that wrote that post might be in a completely different industry, selling to a completely different vertical. It's good to, to know that the general best practices, but if you don't understand your data for your team, if you don't know how many calls it takes to get somebody to answer, if you don't know how many conversations it takes to get interest and get a meeting set, and if you don't know how many of those appointments set it takes to get one to actually show up, there's no way you're going to be able to set an appropriate quota for your team. It's basically the equivalent of, licking your finger and sticking it up in the air. So I think it's really important, leaders in all sales capacities, not just sales development, to understand how their team's data is actually working. You've got to be good at, your CRM. You've got to be in the weeds with your team and really understand all of the intricacies of your specific team so you can set appropriate numbers and then coach based on things that your team needs. I think that's something that a lot of people are missing right now.
And so diving a little bit into that, right? Making sure that the needs are there. We're putting in the right process for the reps. And there's a lot of SDRs, SDR leaders watching, even sales leaders watching. Is it finding what the best reps are doing and replicating that process for each rep? Or is it, hey, what's working as an overall consistency for the organization? And then making sure every rep does the same thing. So there's two kind of components there.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a little bit of both. If you understand the generalities, then you can take a new rep and give them some guidelines. But I think it's very important to understand how each individual rep operates and what they're good at. I have some reps that are really, really good on the phone, and I have some that are really good at email, and I have some that, are good at both, some that are bad at both. So you can't expect every single rep to have the same conversion rate on their email. You can't expect every rep to have the same set rate on their calls. So generalities are good. It's good to be able to forecast, but getting granular on an individualized basis is also very important.
Yeah, and it is good to be on a certain level, and you want to make sure that the leaders are doing the right things. They're putting people in the right spots. And we've talked about a little bit about it already with Zach and with Sam about personalization, but I want to get two people's perspective on this because I get asked this a lot is, hey, how can you make personalization not creepy? So I mentioned screenshots that can automatically be seen as pretty creepy. So I'm going to toss it over to Sydney, and I'm also going to toss over to Scott as well, as like, how can you make personalization not creepy from an SDRs that are listening right now? They're like, okay, I want to do personalization, but how do I do that right?
Yeah, I think it's all about keeping it relevant, right? So keeping it a little bit more professional. Don't ask them how their dog is doing or their kids' colleges are. I think it's perfectly fine to be like, hey, I noticed you went to CU Boulder. I'm a huge Buffs fan. Did you watch the game last night? And then tie it back to why it's relevant. Or you can also go ahead and tie in something like, hey, I really love what you've posted on these 3 topics. These are how these topics relate into what I'm selling. So I think it's all about finding something that's kind of professional about them or something that they care about in a professional sense, and then tying it back to a value prop or a problem you can help them solve with your whatever you're selling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of second what Sydney's saying there. It's so critical, of course, that you're personalizing your outreach. You need to find a way to bring your message to the top. There's a ton of boring mass emails out there, and I think it used to work much better. I've been guilty of being creepy for sure in my SDR.
Scott, what are you doing where that's creepy? What creepy messages are you sending to people?
Man, I don't know. I used to send like Lionel Richie memes and like all this really funny, like cute stuff. And it kind of worked for a short period of time, but then everyone started doing it, right? And so now, if someone sends me a note who's like talking about the mascot of the college I went to, or references my latest Instagram post about, how much I love Bullet Bourbon or something like that, all that shows me is that they can navigate their way around the interweb. Congratulations. You can type my name into a search bar, and maybe if it's funny, I'll shoot you a pity response, but Probably not. So instead of taking the time to find out what my favorite hobby is, take the time to truly understand my business, and more importantly, what my objectives are within that business and how they directly relate to your product and service. So things you can do, reference, like Sydney mentioned this, reference a LinkedIn post, say something in an intelligent manner, even respectfully challenge some ideas that maybe I bring to the light. I think personalization for me, if I read an email or hear a pitch on the phone and I feel like they understand my business objectives, then you've done your job as an SDR or a salesperson.
Definitely. And I want to add more context on that. I'm going to throw it back to you guys and anyone else. Actually, I'm going to open up to everyone who has an example of this. So example of you being personalized in your responses you got back. I think that's really key, because what happens a lot of the times is people will write a really personalized email. It takes you an hour. You do a lap around the office and you high five everyone because you thought it was an amazing. And then you come back and then no one responds to you, which happens to a lot of reps. A lot of people. I've done the same thing before. I'm like,
or worse, the email bounces.
That's actually the worst. The email bounces, and then you can't find the right email address. Oh my goodness, you're done. So these are the things that obviously we're trying to avoid. So I always tell people, hey, like, what are the 5 triggers? What are the 5 events that you're looking for on someone's LinkedIn profile, their Twitter, or their website? And grab that and use as relative context to get in front of them. So an example that I do is I use LinkedIn to obviously post content, but I use it for way more than that. So there is a button that you can press. So like, for example, when people are hiring SDRs, like that's my trigger for me to reach out to them. So I'll type that into LinkedIn, hiring SDRs, and then I'll click content and I'll click latest. So I can see everyone who's posted, who's hiring SDRs, who's looking for SDRs, and who's looking for SDR talent, because obviously I can help with the onboarding process. So what are some things that you guys look for, and what are some messages that you guys are typing up, and how are you getting in front of those buyers to make sure that it's relevant, as Scott and Sydney have already addressed?
Yeah, I think a really good thing now that it's conference season, since you're at these conferences anyway and you're stuck at the booth, maybe you have an hour and you're just hanging out, go to the speeches of the prospects you're trying to reach. For instance, you're trying to reach the C-level, they're speaking at the conference. Go to their sessions and figure out what they're talking about, because they're going to talk about their past. They're going to talk about their successes, their challenges, and then, take notes and spit that out in an email. And that's a lot more stronger, saying, hey, I really enjoyed watching your session at B2BMX. I really took away these 3 points, and I love how you attacked the failure and made it into a success. I'm wondering if we could do the same with product XYZ. I think that's a way to do it outside of the digital era, just because it's conference season.
No, that's a great point. I think there's like 4 conferences that I already see that are happening next month. I'm going to like 3 of them. So I'm like,
Summit.
I'm going to Revenue Summit. I'm on all of them. So if you guys are there, give a shout out to us. But anyone else have any? That's a great example. I love that example. Anyone has more context or any other examples they've used from a personalized perspective that you got an answer and you're like, oh, that was awesome, or the framework you take to make sure that you get success?
Yeah, I had a good example that's worked well for me a few times, in that looking at the past companies that person's worked for. A lot of times, I'm at Adobe, so it can come up a lot that their past companies could be a current client of ours. And that means that maybe they have interacted with your product, depending on what it is, before. That can be a way warmer approach if they're maybe already a champion or already familiar, and they might want to get that tool onboarded to their new company, but they don't know how yet. I've reached out that way a few times if I've seen either my product mentioned in a past company or even just their past company being a client. I'll reach out using that messaging.
That's really awesome, because that's already going to create a relative.
Let me add on that, Morgan.
Yeah, for sure.
Sales Navigator, job change alerts. Same exact thing. Track the companies in your ICP and set up alert job changes. That's how lots of companies have sold into me. When I go to a new company, I have people that sell what I need that reach out to me immediately, congratulate me on the job change, ask if, we have a tool like there's already implemented. If not, let's have a conversation. And that it works. It does. when somebody switches jobs, they want to make an impact.
100%.
And I'll add one more thing there, and it's not so much a trigger or an alert, but it's something that really helped me personalize my messages almost on like a persona level. So you're a BDR, you're an SDR, you're a salesperson. You probably know what personas you sell into, or you should. So if those are product marketers, CTOs, CFOs, whatever it is, you will most likely have one of those in the office that you work in every single day. So one thing you can do like right now is take that person out for coffee next week and, have a real conversation with them. Be like, hey, what stresses you out on a day-to-day?
Right.
What KPIs drive your business forward? What makes you look good in front of your boss? And then using that when you're reaching out to similar personas, you're just gonna be able to speak their language more effectively.
That's a great point, Scott.
It's a great point. No, you have to be able to understand that. And you talked about obviously the system and things that are going on. So I want to actually go back. I want to go to Catherine here and ask, how do sales reps effectively work within their ecosystem with their reps, fellow reps, their leaders, their managers, their AEs? How does that dynamic work? Because I know there's sometimes that people message me, and you guys probably get the same thing. They're like, oh, my AE sucks. Like, I hate him. Like, or I hate her. Or like the AEs, like my SDRs aren't giving me the right thing. So like, how do you work within that system, make sure everyone is getting along and there's real collaboration?
Right. And I think the main thing I've realized is maybe in the first few months, you're just trying to get the hold of the SDR role and do your best there. But as soon as you can, you need to be stepping out and trying to take clutter off of their desk. So whether it's your manager, whether it's your AE, like a lot of times the current mindset of an SDR is that you're limited to just being kind of assistant, like booking meetings, generating that for them. But you need to think of yourself outside of that and start asking them to be included on later steps of the process. Say, hey, can I help you with some of your pricing work or with your contracts or something else that they have to do down the line so that you can start freeing up some of their time. And once they realize you have that greater value, whether it's your manager or AE, that's going to help you get promoted faster, and it's going to make you a more valuable resource on the team.
Yeah. So do you normally suggest people, because this is something that I was told that I think is like the most critical thing as an SDR, but this was when I was going to get promoted, so I didn't use it. But getting 5 deals, or you can follow all of them, but 5 deals that are opportunities that you source an account executive and watching them go all the way to close 1. So what advice would you have on that, or further context? Have you heard of that before? Or like, what do you normally tell reps?
Yeah, that's really common here. And I think we don't even think of it as being this flattering, but even just telling your AE, like, I want to be where you are. I want to be in the field. Like, you are a role model to me. That's flattering for them. And they're going to want to just maybe include you, but you do have to be persistent about saying, hey, I know I sourced this. I would love to see where this conversation goes, and just ask them to CC you on things, to include you on meeting invites, because it's easier for it to slip off their radar. But just asking for it, most of the time they're going to be fine just including you, and then taking the initiative to say, hey, I heard on that call that they're interested in learning more about this feature. I'm happy to send over a page on this, or invite them to a webinar we're having on this. And they're going to say, oh, that's a great idea I never thought of, and I don't have the time because I'm on the road, but go ahead and do that, Catherine, and that'll help a lot. And adding that value makes you, larger than your role within your ecosystem.
Yeah, I think a mentor told me is that you have to act above 3 steps of your role. So doing things that you normally wouldn't do. So if you're a rep and someone's asking for help, it's helping them. If a leader needs an assignment done, you do the assignment as if you were above that leader per se. So it's just understanding you got to be 3 steps ahead of where you want to be, because if you're not acting as if you're going to be there one day, then you won't be there one day. And so I think that was probably one of the key nuggets I got from a mentor as I continue to grow in my career, because I always try to act like, hey, what should I be? Where do I want to go? I need to start acting like that person now, because if I do get there and I haven't really become that person, then you get exposed, and then it's really not going to be a good time for you. So I want to switch it back to Sam though, because he did talk about, hey, there's problems, there's worrisomes in the sales development world. We're annoying our prospects. We're not seeing the right messages. So how do you develop and execute actually an account-based sales development tactic and make sure your right messaging is correct so those people respond to you?
So, I mean, it starts with the research and being able to dig deep into the company. So, in my last role, I was very active looking at the marketing messaging and looking at the sales messaging. So I was diving really deep, trying to understand like what the SDRs were saying, what the marketing team was saying, and then from there branch out. Like you start at the bottom, you go out, deep and wide within these, accounts, and try and figure out exactly what the pains of these different personas are, and then build it out and attack them separately. You don't want to just go into one company and tell every single person that you're targeting the same message, because they're all going to have different things that are keeping them up at night and that are keeping them, stressed out. And you want to be helping them solve their problems individually so that they can collectively come together and make a decision to work with you.
Yeah, that's really big. You definitely have to make sure that they want to work with you, because then obviously that's just not going to make any sense at all. So I know people have different touch points. Like my touch points are 4 emails, 4 phone calls, 2 social touches. Do you have a framework that you base your outreach on, or is it completely based on industry and persona?
It's really based on the persona. I think the different personas respond very differently. VP of sales, very different than a VP of marketing, even though they're both in charge of generating revenue for the company. And so I take a very different approach, because a VP of sales they're used to getting calls all day, where VP of marketing, they typically hate getting cold called. And so with a VP,
they do. They hate it.
So, it's different approaches with them. I'm not going to cold call a VP of marketing 6 or 7 times, where I might email them 6 or 7 times, vice versa.
Right. That's a great point. You got to make sure you understand your persona, as Sam's saying. I think that's actually super critical, because I target sales leaders now. So I'm doing more calling than I normally do, because I know they're receptive to that. But when I was reaching out to marketers, they don't like cold calls at all. Like it's slightly funny to some degree, because when you call salespeople, when I call salespeople, they're like ready for it. A marketer is almost as if they saw like a ghost, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm on a cold call. How do I get out of here? When I get it, they're not receptive to that. They're more receptive to emails, content, videos is what I made when I was at Terminus. Made a ton of videos because they were really receptive to that. So to Sam's point, you have to have an account-based methodology to reach out to the right persona so it resonates with them. But the same framework isn't going to work for everyone. The same structure, the talk tracks, the way you do your emails, the way you do your social selling components, and the activities you do will be the same. But how you do it and the messaging behind it, and how many and how less, is different across the board. But we're gonna into the Q&A session. But there's someone who has a direct question. I want to answer it. So Hollis asks, Have you ever asked what makes you look good in front of your boss? I have asked that when he has another person he's reporting to, because the thing at the end of the day, when I was a manager and I had a person above me who was a director, your whole job is make sure your director's life is easy. That's your whole job. Like that's it. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why you're handling the reps and the front lines. That's why you're doing that. So I would ask him, hey man, like what can I do to make your life easier, and what's going to make you look good? So I would take on projects. Maybe I didn't have the bandwidth to take on at the time, but I knew if I could do it and help his job easier and also make his life easier, it would help me get in the right direction, obviously, but also help the team better along the way, because now he can focus on different priority projects that he couldn't before. And it takes a lot off his plate, and it makes him less stressed out. And you can't have your leader stressed out, and you can't do these things along the way, because it's obviously going to cause a dissension across the organization. And that's not what you want. But I do want to facilitate it back to Scott and ask, hey, how can I get the promotion that I desperately want? Because there's a lot of people in here right now. They're probably on the cusp of getting promoted. They're trying to figure out, how am I going to get promoted? So what do they need to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll dive into that one. I want to quickly address the question from the audience, because I think it's a great question. And I just want to never, like people innately are super selfish. We all live in this world where we're the center of the universe and nothing else matters. And a lot of times when you're calling as an SDR, you think that people make rational choices and decisions. And you're like, I know that this is really going to help this organization. I've made this amazing business case, and why wouldn't they? Well, probably because it won't actually impact their day-to-day or what is on their mind currently. They make emotional decisions based on what's going to help them in the short term. So I would just urge you to keep in mind when you're making those calls is put yourself not in the company's position, but actually the person that you're talking to's position, and you're going to have much more effective calls.
I love it.
But yeah, so when we talk about promotions, I love this one. And I think to start this one off, I'm going to have to defer to my favorite quote in the world by Charlie Munger. You can actually see this one on my LinkedIn profile. And it goes, "To get what you want, you have to deserve what you want. The world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward the undeserving." And I love that quote because it makes everything unbelievably simple. So it's not enough just to want a promotion. You know, anyone can want a promotion. You have to deserve it. And deserving it doesn't mean that you've been there for 12 months. So, hey, I deserve it. Or I'm in the office the longest. So, hey, I deserve it. What actually deserving it means is that you've read every book you can get your hands on how to be a successful AE or CS manager or BD manager, whatever you want to be. Deserving it means that you've gone up to the top sales rep, said, "Hey, I'll buy you lunch this week if I can shadow you." Deserving it means, you know, taking the time out of your Sunday while your buddies are watching football to plan out your week, set up your cadences. And then deserving it means, you know, not being too forward thinking and actually crushing your numbers every quarter as well. So
yeah,
number one, you have to deserve it. Number two, which is equally as important, is making your intention known. Because you can have your head down, you can do all the work behind closed doors, and you can truly deserve it. But you can still lose out to the promotion for, you know, half-assed Billy Bob over there because he was proactive in letting his intentions be known. So yeah, I think of your career like the sales process, right? So you begin with the end in mind. So what do you do at the beginning of a sales call? Well, you usually outline how the call is going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do the same with your manager, your VP, your CEO, if you can. Explain to them your exact intentions of where you hope to be in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and set milestones with them. So once those are hit, it's a no-brainer, you know, and you'll be surprised how easy it is to have that conversation, because when you've lived up to your side, they'll do the same. Again, it's like the sales process. Closing is the easiest part if you've done all the work up to that point well. So getting the promotion is the easy part. All the work leading up to that is the hard part.
To the promotion every single time.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
awesome.
Summary: make sure you deserve it. Don't just want it. Make your intention known. Sorry, that was long-winded, but.
No, the people got to know that. People got to know that because I think that's a very poignant question. A lot of people ask it. So right now we're going to take some time, about 20 minutes, to go into the comment section, answer your questions. I see a good amount of questions here. We already went to Hollis's. We answered that one, but one that I want to dive into is from perspectives of like, let's get like two people to answer this. What tools can help in an ABM process or an ABM approach? I mean, I'm gonna start off and I'm gonna say Terminus because I was there, and also it's an account-based marketing tool, so it's gonna help you. I'm not even gonna pitch it, but it will help you. Another one is SalesOps, where Zach's at right now. That'll help you. It helps me. I do it. I still use it on a daily basis.
Morgan, where should they send your check? Just plug in there.
I'm telling the tools. They ask the question.
I'll go grab Derek right after this.
Go get Derek. Bring Derek in here. But no, SalesOps, Terminus. I use Owler to make sure I can see news that's going on, and then also use LinkedIn Sales Navigator because I can see who's changing jobs from an ABM standpoint. And I also use Nudge to see where my relations are within accounts and see who's a collaborator to help me. So those are tools I use. I don't know if you guys use anything different than I use, but those are the ones I utilize every single day.
I'd also recommend a firmographic tool such as DataFox or EverString. Find companies that are similar to the buyer personas that are already working for you. Those are the two best tools, in my opinion, on the firmographic side.
Cool.
I also use Discover.org, so you can figure out the actual structure of the team within the companies that are your account, so you can actually see like who you should be contacting. And then for me, like I have for my account list, I have like 80 accounts, so I have a good number to play with, but I can get really deep. I'll just go old school and actually just look at their 10K if they're a public company, and look into their actual initiatives in their MD&A section, look into their actual goals and stuff, and not really. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are doing that, because it really does land well when I reference something specifically to someone that's at the right level, if it's director or VP level.
Sure.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I think you should touch more on that. How do people find that information? Where do you go if you're an SDR, BDR?
You can the great thing about 10Ks is it's free. It's not a tool you have to download. You can just Google that. And if they're public, so it'll be filings, they'll have quarterly reports. We'll have earnings calls. Not all the time will it be relevant to maybe your department or your persona, but still a lot of times it'll say like, oh, we're pushing for mobile this year, or we're pushing to have, this increase in, our contact base, or something that will be relevant that you can just latch onto and say, hey, this is coming from your CEO down. Are you aware of this initiative, and how can we help you get there, basically?
Definitely.
I love that.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, the next question from Aaron Price. Do you believe in personalization by persona, or is one-on-one more effective? It's a good question.
Yeah.
Depends on your scale of people you're contacting.
Yeah, Sam, go ahead. Take it.
I think it's important to tier things. Depending on what your assignment is. If you have a large range of companies that you can go after, it doesn't make sense to personalize a company that's going to get you a $3,000 ARR deal. But it also does not make sense to send mass emails to the Fortune 100. So for my team, they have tier A, B, and C accounts. For tier A, it is straight custom, all personalized from start to finish. Tier B is a mix, and tier C is almost completely templated, other than some custom fields, like name, company, things like that. And I have the reps, since tier C is a lot larger, pool to pull companies that meet a general persona that'll fit that cadence, such as solar companies in Central Florida. I think, it really depends on who you're going after, what makes the most fiscal sense, and how many of them you're going after.
Yeah.
So to piggyback on what Zach said, I think that, it should be case by case, but I rarely come across an instance where you're going after a bunch of people and, you have a large scale that you're trying to touch, and you can't, hyper focus in on the personalization by persona. So even if, you're looking at 200 VP of sales, you can still break those down into, more smaller categories where exactly, you're learning and trying to figure out exactly what this persona type is, and then how to personalize to that. But then you don't have to do 1-to-1 to them. You can maybe do like 10-to-1 or 20 messages. So it's saving you time, and it's more personalized than doing all 200 at once, but you're not having to spend the ridiculous amount of time sending 1-to-1 messages to people either.
Yeah, I agree.
Spot on.
I thought someone was going to say something. Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, it's 3 to 5 hyper-personalized emails I try to send every single day, and then everything else is based on persona. That's what I try to do, and I keep that on the same basis, because I don't try to cloud it, and I don't try to think too much about it, because when you do that, again, it's going to go back to my example of you crafting emails for 2 hours and trying to be hyper-personalized. That's going to be tough. But also, I like doing it by persona, because I know that at least they can see that I know about their priorities. So I think that's a really good point on that one. So I think that's a good context on that answer. Hopefully, Aaron, that answers on how to do the scale versus getting really, really granular. I just believe in, hey, persona base, have those messages and send those out. And you can do that at scale. And then also those 1-to-1 where you find something, an article, a blog post, a LinkedIn post that you can leverage on top of. So, but next question we're going to go into is, I don't know what you guys' thoughts on this one. This one's interesting. I don't use this, but have any of you used LinkedIn Helper to auto view profiles and engage in dialogue when the prospect views your profile back? I don't use it, so I have no context on that.
I've used stuff like that in the past. Not a fan.
The one thing I will say on that is, if someone views my profile, If it's someone that I've been reaching out to or someone that's within my realm or in my industry, I'll just say, hey, thanks for reviewing my profile. Would love to connect with you. That's essentially it. I don't go any deeper than that. So I don't use any LinkedIn helpers. I feel like it's not, for me, it's not as streamlined and as efficient, and it doesn't give me a real gauge on who's actually really interacting with me. So that's why I don't use it. So if no,
people can tell when it's automated.
Yeah, is anyone have more context on that? Because that's pretty much it.
Never used it. No, I wouldn't know. I have nothing to add, unfortunately.
Cool. Okay, we'll hop into the next one. This one, I like this one. Any tips or tricks for helping to drive prospects to events? I got a good story. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to add though before I hop into mine.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
You were fired up, Scott. You're about to say.
I was thinking I was going to let you go.
You're fired up. I don't want to stop you.
He's just at a standing desk. That's just how he looks when he's standing.
He was like revving up, like he was about to give us the best story of his life. All right, man. Like, come on. Okay.
Doing his Tai Chi on the side.
Okay, so this was back when I was 2 years ago when I was at Terminus. I was an SDR. My very first event I went to, Serious Decisions. So we had just released ABM for Dummies, Account-Based Marketing for Dummies. And this book, everyone wanted it for the most part. So we did the generic sent emails before, the generic send the emails, like come to the booth, like where are you, da-da. And so I was like, okay, no one's answering me, nothing's happening. So I was like, I got to do something different. Again, goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I took a picture of me smiling at the booth with the book, with the ABM for Dummies. And I was like, hey, what's up? And so essentially I said, come get your copy of ABM for Dummies. And I was like, hey, first name, whatever the name was, hope you're having a great time at the conference. I just want to invite you to the booth so you can get a copy of the ABM for Dummies. And I'd love to have a conversation about my favorite chapter within the book. And I sent it out. And a lot of people showed up to the booth and they were like, this is one of the best emails I've ever received. And the only reason I'm showing up is because you sent that email with the book. I want the book, but I want to have a conversation. So this was like a game-changing thing. And the reason it works is because it's unique and it stands out. You got to have some picture. You got to add your personality. You got to imagine, again, it goes back to so many people are getting so many emails and they're getting destroyed. So you got to stand out. And so that was my standout thing at Serious Decisions. And that helped me book a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. To that point, I do a lot of event invites and event-driven pipeline. And you have to pick out something specific about the event. So if it's a dinner, find something on the menu that's really cool. Like they had, duck confit tacos at one of my events. And I was like, menu looks great. They have some duck confit tacos, thought you might enjoy. And just something specific like that. If you can get a video of the past event from the year before, especially if it's your summit or your conference, putting in a video that they can click on and watch, just anything contextually so they can get a view into what that event would actually be like, maybe a snippet about the speaker there. You have to add something specific, not just this is the title of the event. Do you want to come?
Right.
Yeah, I think just building off that more, I think if you can make personalized videos, it'll help you so much. Because even if they don't respond to them and you have a meeting set, well, they're going to recognize your face when you're at the event. And it does a really good job of kind of bridging that gap between, random dude on an email and guy at the conference that's much more approachable because I've seen his face. I've kind of seen his demeanor, I've seen him on a video. So it helps people feel more comfortable around you, for sure.
Definitely.
Can I add something to that real quick?
I'm not going to stop.
I think it goes way above and beyond events. If you're an SDR and you're not using video in your outreach for anything, get using video. Mm-hmm. Like you're a real person. Show people that you're a real person. It works. I have one of my reps sitting across from me right here. And so while we've been on this call, he wrote on the board to let me know that a deal signed. That deal signed because this guy didn't show up to a call that we had set. So we recorded like a 5-minute video for him and sent it to him. And he asked for the contract like that quick. So not just for events, use video all the time. It works. Sorry for the tangent, but
no, video works. Like I'll stream that all day long. Video does work. It's great. it's awesome and it's very applicable across the board. And it's kind of video may apply here. I mean, I kind of answered the question for this. I think it's kind of good here because how does your messaging differ for IT versus marketing when trying to book a meeting? Biggest thing that I know from a marketing standpoint, I know video works, but I don't reach out to IT. So I don't know if anyone reached out to IT and they want to give context on that.
I've reached out to IT before and I felt like it's worked. I mean, you have to be different. You can't say the same thing as when you're selling to a marketing person or a salesperson, but I've never had video not work.
Yeah, I think with IT, I've had limited, it was like a small persona before. And in my opinion, it's more straight to the point. Like marketers, their job is to be a little fluffier and creative and things like that. So you can be cuter with a marketer, whereas an IT professional doesn't care. They just want to know bang, bang, bang the points. You can still do that in a video for sure, but get to the point. Cool. Is what I would say.
They like feeling smart too.
Yeah, totally. Build
butter them up.
Yeah. Yeah, I would maybe lead with like a question that allows them to showcase how amazingly smart they are and how much they know about tech. I bet that would warrant a response. Lead with curiosity, and see what you get.
Cool. And next question that's coming up is, what's your favorite tool for data? Again, that's another depending upon your organization. I personally use Zoom. I've used Discover.org before, previous organization. I think it really comes down to is just understanding who you're going after and who has the best data set and what you're really looking for. I like Zoom because it's got a lot of direct dials, but that's just me. I don't know if anyone's like, they have their go-to, but that's the data is the data. It's like, there's no perfect data source. There's no crystal ball. If there was, everyone would have it. And it's not a thing.
Yeah, there aren't many horrible tools out there anymore. They've kind of weeded themselves out. Most of them are good, but it really depends on your specific industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first company I worked as an SDR, we found that Discover.org was really good for what we were looking for. Another company, Zoom was a lot better for the persona that we were going after. Lead IQ at my last company is one that we used a lot. They're all great tools. They all do their job, but you got to figure out which one's going to have the right information for you and your needs.
Cool. No, if anyone's any more context on that, we can move to the next question here. I think the next question is, and this is, I'll kind of touch on this just from seeing from just being in an ABM organization. Is ABM strategy only for larger sales and marketing teams? Their marketing teams, one SDR, one marketing manager, one CMO. So my thing is, hey, look, like ABM's not for everyone because it depends on who you're going after. If you're going after really small companies like mom and pop shops down the street, ABM's just not going to be for you. If you're going after large enterprise accounts, it's going to be for you down the road. I think as a small team already going into account-based marketing, I don't think it's going to be beneficial. I think it's where you have to start if you're a startup is really focus on Wild West, greenfield, just get gunslinging, get yourself out there. I think that's what you really have to do. Base your messages on personas and make sure that it resonates. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that you have to do. But I think as your organization evolves, you got to make sure that you have some account-based methodology in play so you're not running out of accounts and you're putting the right accounts into pipeline. Because setting meetings is great, but setting meetings that don't turn into revenue is terrible. So that's my answer to that question. I think it's something to think about, but it's not something you got to do today because account-based requires a lot of people and it's a process. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah. And I would say on that one, like if you're a small organization, you'd never have a strictly an ABM approach, but baking it into some of the things that you're already doing. ABM is anytime you're looking at the account holistically versus just a one-to-one. So you're probably already doing some form of ABM, and slowly over time you can just build on that.
Yeah. Cool.
Jason Lemkin, the founder of SaaStr, had a post that went really viral about 5 years ago called the 48 different types of VP of sales. But I think it applies here as well. when you're a small org, your job is to evangelize the company, evangelize the disruption that you're providing. And then from there, your job is to make it scale. And then once your company hits, the very general rule of thumb, but about 10 million in ARR, then it's time to go big, go for the big wigs. And so there are different stages of your company where your main focus should be different things. If you're a small org right now, your job's to evangelize and find the early adopters first. So that's the main thing I would be focused on.
Cool. Great. Awesome. So let's go into the next one. Is someone's had choice in making their next move ahead in career, getting that SDR team lead role or an AE role. What is a good choice? I think, Scott, you kind of touched on this already from a promotion standpoint. I don't know who wants to touch on this. I mean, my thing is, there's a lot of things that go into. What was everyone's perspective? Like, I could go on a tangent on this, but we don't have time enough for that. So, like, does anyone have like a quick tip? Quick nugget on what they should do here?
Different mindsets. It depends on what you like doing.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I think it's all about understanding what you want, the step after that, right? Do you want to be an individual contributor? Do you want to develop a sales process more? Or do you really enjoy teaching others? And do you really enjoy mentoring other people? Because if you want to mentor people, that team lead role is going to be awesome. And if you're really trying to dig deeper into that sales process and understand more about sales and developing sales skills, that AE process is going to be a lot better for you.
Going back to what Scott said earlier, map it out, not just by yourself, but map it out with leadership in your company and see what they feel is like a logical career path for you. If you plan on staying at that company, they might only promote sales leaders from the AE channel. That just might be their quirk. So you gotta map it out with them and know how that fits in with your career progression path as well.
Yeah, to touch on that, starting what Scott was saying, starting at the end and then working your way back, figuring out what your end goal is, and then look at every step that is necessary to take to get there is a good way to figure out the roadmap you should be taking rather than starting where you're at now.
Definitely.
I would say, so just to this scenario, I would say, like, go with the team lead. Like, you don't have to be on this crazy mission to be AE as quick as possible. You can always go from team lead to AE, whenever you want, if the door is open. But this is going to allow you a chance to manage people as well, if that's a path that you want. And then you can go be an individual contributor. I think so many people think that they're on this like fast-paced race to get where it is, but these things that you'll pick up along the way are the real value that you're getting.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'd go with the SDR team lead because you're going to find out if you like leadership or not. And it's better to find that out sooner than later. You don't want to somehow fall into a leadership position. You realize you don't like it. So the SDR team lead gives you a perspective to understand what the components of that role means. You're not going to be obviously like leading everything, but you're going to have some responsibility. And then you're going to realize this is awesome or this is terrible. And then now you can translate yourself into the AE role. And then you can stay a closer as long as you want to, or maybe later you realize I do want to be a leader. So I would go with that SDR team lead role. It's going to give you a good perspective. It's going to keep you still grounded in that perspective of where you need to be. And it's going to give you experience if you do want to go in leadership someday. So that's my answer to that. And I know that we're kind of winding up on timer, so we're going to go through questions as fast as possible. If we don't get to all of them, you guys can message us later. I know that Make It Happen Monday, we'll do something on that as well with John. I know John will hop in and answer questions too. But the thing is here, someone asks, it sounds like most presenters are in organizations with pre-established SDR programs process. I've been charged with starting one from scratch. Where can I start from methodology? So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into this because
a lot of books out there.
Yeah, this is like a 2-hour conversation though, like because I would have to figure. There's so many questions I have to ask to give you the right answer. To be honest with you, but I would start with there's probably 3 main things that without knowing anything in the context of your business or anything that's going on. Number 1, you got to figure out who you're targeting. You got to figure out who you're going after. You got to figure out who are your personas, what industries are going after. I think that's number 1. Number 2, you have to figure out how are you going to structure your account executives, because are you going to do one-to-one? Are you going to do round robin? Are you going to do territories? That's something you got to figure out as you structure your team. And I think number 3 is you have to figure out how do you want your team culture to be, and what do you want them to do? So there's 2 things. You can either let your reps come in and create their own messages, which I don't prefer that. Or 2, you as a leader, get with the sales executive leadership team, get with the marketing executives, get with your CEO, craft messages around the people. This is already stuff from number 1, but craft messages already pre-organized for your team so that when they come into these roles, all you have to teach them is the skill sets to be successful, how many calls and emails that you want to do. But from a baseline, those are 3 things you got to look at. It's more questions I have to ask to give you a better answer. So I don't know if anyone wants to like hop in from a standpoint of like, I think that's really pretty much it. Cause I don't want to go too deep in this because I don't have the context.
I have a like 30
read sales development playbook.
Yeah.
I mean, read
no, just read that book.
I literally took that framework and I ripped it out of the pages and applied it at this company called Media Valet, where I built out the business development team. And it was just Trish Bertuzzi actually built it out because I just took the words and applied them.
That's a offline.
Hey guys, I gotta go catch a flight. So
all right, Zach.
See you, man.
And that's like a whole nother conversation right there too. So it's really deep, but we'll keep on going. Best way to uncover pain, quantify, or what's the best way to uncover pain and quantify it to compel prospects to want to do something about it? This is a good question.
Great question. How to uncover pain?
I guess. So the question is how to uncover pain and quantify it to compel prospects to want to do something about it.
I think one way that you can uncover pain, or it's worked for me in the past, is just giving examples of the pain that you've helped similar personas get rid of. So, if you have a client list that used to be super stressed out until they got your product or service, we'll be like, hey, we helped these people with their pain. Do you have the same pain? You're in a similar role, you're in a similar organization. And then sometimes that will bubble up pain that they didn't even know they had.
Another easy way is looking back at what you've already done. And who have you helped? What pains did they have? Did you discover on the calls? Go back and listen to your recordings, look at the emails, figure out, and then build out these pains for people that you're speaking to in the future based off of what you've learned from the past.
I would say go to customer success. They have all the answers. They've been on every call. They're in the trenches. They're battling every single day to keep the customers there. So they have all the answers. They know where all the pain points are. So that's what I would do. I would go set a meeting with a customer success person, customer success leader, even CEO, because at the beginning, the early days, right, the CEO is the salesperson and they're in customer success. So they know the pains as well. Or co-founders, I would sit down with them and ask like, hey, what are the pains? What's going on here? Like, what's happening? Your case studies also will give you that context. And also if you can go to a customer conference, they'll give you the pains as well. Because you can ask like, hey, you're one of our best customers. Like, what pain did you feel? And how did our solution help? Get those stories, get that information and leverage it, because the biggest advantage that you have overall is your customers. From my CEO, John tells me all the time, he's like, the best thing that we have is that our customer is Salesforce. So we use that as leverage. Like we solve a solution for them. So we leverage that. So you got to figure out on your customer standpoint, what pains are they facing and how are you solving that on a daily basis? And that will be able to help your message when you're having talk tracks. Because I always go on talk tracks like, hey, we talked to people just like you. And they said that they dealt with this and we helped them solve this. Like, is the same thing happening to you? Most of the time it is, because they're the same persona.
Totally.
Cool. Catherine, Sydney, any context on that?
Took the words out of my mouth.
There we go. Cool. So let's go into another question. So this is a good one. So on the topic of video, for those not as well versed in creating content, what are some resources to help build the skills and find your voice?
Join an improv class. I think it just comes from practice, right? Like everyone feels like a goof in front of the camera, and then you do it enough times and you get comfortable with it, and it's just about practice, I think.
So a year ago, I never put out any content. I wanted to, but I was scared to. And I went to a conference and saw John speak, and he was talking about Morgan and how he had built out this great personal brand. And the advice for you was just publish it, just do it. It doesn't matter what it is, just get yourself and put yourself out there, like feel uncomfortable. And I had a couple other mentors that were saying the same thing to me and pushing me, and I would get texts in the morning like, just hit publish. And I didn't want to. I finally did it, and it came through. Everything worked out great. I found my voice through writing because that was what I had been skilled at. But look at what you're good at, look at where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then just go for what you're strongest at and put yourself out there, be vulnerable.
Catherine, I know you got something on this topic.
Well, I have a bit of a unique perspective because I've been doing video for about 6 years on my YouTube channel. So if I think back to, Catherine 6 years ago and how did I start making video, I think you just have to start consuming a lot of video. Like look at the people who you like to watch and look at their style, like look at their personality that comes through, look at the videos you engage most with. And figure out for yourself, are they taking themselves seriously or they're not taking themselves too seriously? Like allow yourself to kind of mimic in the beginning the styles you like. And then eventually that'll fall away and you'll find kind of the style you like the most. But you got to find the bright spots of what you like the best for video and try that out. And it's a lot of vulnerability. You can record 10 videos and never publish them, but you got to publish the 11th. Like you got to put yourself at some point where you can practice as much as you want, but at this point, after 10 days, after a certain number of videos, you're going to start pushing them live and start making them public.
Yeah, I agree with Catherine for sure. I actually watched my first video 2 days ago, and it was absolutely terrible. It's awful. It's really bad. You guys would laugh. And I'm going to post it at one point and be like, guys, this is bad. And most people are like, oh, like you've been doing amazing shit. No, the first video is always going to be bad. The first article you write is probably not going to be that good. First audio clip that you do is honestly just not going to be good. I'm letting you guys know straight up. It's not. But the thing is, like, you got to think about every single thing that you've done. The first time, it probably wasn't good. First time you rode a roller coaster, you probably wanted to leave the roller coaster and unbuckle yourself. First time you went swimming, you thought you were going to drown. Like all these different things. First time you drove a car, you thought you were going to wreck. So you got to think about all the stuff you've done today that you've already done once that you now do well. Like at one point, think about it, you couldn't even walk. You now can run and do all these things and sprint. So I always think about it in that perspective when it comes to content. It's like, okay, I've already done something once before. Why can't I make content once before, right? And you got to think about it also from the perspective of number one fear that I think a lot of people have is they're afraid of what people are going to say. But you need to be thinking about, hey, you should be excited about what people are going to say about it. Like how excited they're going to be when they see you actually put your voice out there instead of thinking about what are people going to say that is going to make me afraid or make me afraid to do it. So once I got over the fear of like, oh, what is everyone going to say? I was like, let's lock into what I need to do. And, I've been creating videos for about 4 to 5 years now. And the biggest thing for me is just being who I am and being confident in what I'm talking about. So if you watch my content, every single thing that I've said, and Catherine probably said this too, Sam, Scott, everything you write, say, do, I do every single thing that I say and do. That's why I never feel bad about what I'm saying. Because someone could be like, oh, that's not true. And I'll be like, well, here you go. I did this last week. So it's like, these are the things that I do every single day. So I think you have to understand that, like, don't watch a video and be like, oh, that was awesome. And then talk about something that you don't do. Because then everyone's going to see through that. Talk about the stuff that you know. And that's how you're going to find your voice. And everyone has a voice in some capacity. For Sam, it's writing. I can write, but I'm not a writer. I'd rather be on video. I could be on video for 8 hours and talk about stuff all day long. But if someone said write 8 articles, it'd take me 8 months to do because I would like second guess myself. So you got to figure out what your voice is because there's three mediums: audio, audio, video, and written form. And you got to figure out what that's for you. So that's my answer to that. And then last question as we wrap up and we get the round table so we can all go about our days here. SDRs, under sales or marketing, and why?
Oh,
Sam's hype. Sam's hype. You guys are so hyped when you're about to answer a question. Like you and Scott are like about to like summon some answer. It's gonna be amazing. So go ahead, Sam.
I think marketing, personally. I think the umbrella you know, when you're looking at sales and marketing teams, there's usually a big disconnect when the sales development team is under the sales umbrella. From marketing. You know, marketing is creating the content for them and helping them, you know, find the right voice, and, you know, they're giving them the inbound leads that are coming in. So they should be working very, very close together. So I think I would personally put it under marketing, but if it's under sales, the marketing team should be very well connected with the sales development team regardless.
I completely agree. I've actually worked for 2 teams, one under sales, one under marketing. And I thought it was a lot more fluid under marketing just because you're a lot more connected to the message, you know, what marketing is doing, you know, the content that's coming out, you know, the events that are coming up, you're a lot more in tune. Than with sales. It's a little harder to find that unless they're very, very close.
Yeah. I think from a perspective, it depends on who has the bandwidth to give that team the most effort. So if sales isn't going to give the team, SDR, BDR team the most effort, then they shouldn't be there. If the marketing team can't give the bandwidth to the SDR, BDR team, then they shouldn't be doing it. So I think it really comes down to who can give the best effort to that team to make sure that they see results and they're successful. And that depends on each organization and what you're trying to do and who's the leader and who's doing each and every type of that function. But that's my answer. It's completely dependent on your organization. Who's the leader who's going to step up and be like, hey, I'm going to give the most resources, training, insight to this team, and I'm going to make sure that they're the best and they're not just a second-rate team that we have that's just scheduling meetings. Cool. Awesome. Well, those are all the questions, guys. We're trying to wrap it up, get things moving along. Thank you, everyone who's watched. Thank you, everyone who participated with questions. If you have any additional questions, we're going to go around the round table and figure out, hey, where can they find you? Ask more questions. We'll start with Catherine.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn /KA Berry, but on all other socials, I'm at Catherout. So the opposite of Catherine, KATHEROUT. And that's where you'll find all my YouTube, my social content.
Sam? Wait, Sam, you're muted. You're muted.
We lost you.
I'm back. LinkedIn probably is the best way. You can call me too if you want. I think my phone number's on LinkedIn. So
didn't you put it out there?
I did.
Oh goodness.
Text him.
I love it. Scott.
I'm open.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best way. Scott Barker. I think my email's on there. Scott@saleshacker.com. Throw me your best pitch, SDRs. Let's see.
Sydney?
LinkedIn's going to be the best for me too. It's just Sydney Bonar at LinkedIn.
Cool. And then Zach, who had to leave, you can hit him up on Twitter, Zach Barney, and his LinkedIn, Zach Barney. For me, search Morgan J. Ingram on LinkedIn. I try to be as responsive and quick as fast as possible. And Twitter, Morgan J. Ingram, and my YouTube channels, The SDR Chronicles, if you want to watch more videos on SDRs. And that's essentially the best way to hit me up. I feel like if I get my number out there, everyone's going to start calling me and giving me their pitch. But maybe later. Maybe at a later time I'll do that. We'll just have a roundtable and we'll just judge the best pitches. That'd be actually really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Awesome. Well, again, thank you guys so much for coming out. If you have any questions, comments, feedback for us, please, you can get in touch with us and be like, hey, I like this. I didn't like this. I love this part. And again, thank you guys so much for coming out. We're going to keep this coming quarterly. If there's a topic that you really want to hear about, please reach out to us, as we're going to continuously do this and improve and make this better for the community, for sales development, and for sales professionals. So with all that being said, guys, I got to say it, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.